evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. You're listening to Virgan Radio Service. I'm your host, Grant Magic, also dictator of the Republic of New Strathclyde. That piece of music that you just listened to was Domestic Memories, an NCS release which you can find in the description below. And yes, we shall commence the interview. Today I have on the president of New Westphalia, none other than Dan Morris.
Good evening, happy Purge Week, everybody.
Pulse Week, yeah, seems like it. Before we begin the interview, I just want to talk about what's going on planet Earth right now. If you haven't been living under a rock, you'll know that coronavirus is in pretty much every country. It's a SARS-like virus that spreads via air or surfaces, and wash your hands because and don't go outside unless you've been given permission to. Just keep away from people in general because you're putting others at risk as well as yourself. Uh, yeah, yeah. Coronavirus. It's dark. It's very dark. Um, but yeah,
Giving me major Tom Clancy's The Division vibes.
yeah. Really, I was getting what's that one movie? I can't remember the name now. Epidemic, pandemic, something like that. Uh, can't remember. But yes, Dan, it's been quite a while since you've been on the show with us. Um, let's talk about New Westphalia. Last sorry, last I heard you had that meet up with, I can't remember the guy or the name of the nation. So you'll have
So
to.
it was Andrew of the Empire of Stomaria.
The Empire of Stamario. I have heard the name before, but I'm not sure others have. Can you give us a little bit of insight?
So Stomaria is a mainly business-oriented nation state that has a very good grasp of the sense of micronationalism. Myself and Andrew, we share quite similar views in terms of micronationalists and younger micronationalists, and perhaps the different crazes that take over the community. Um, Despite him not being completely embedded in this particular, like say the Twitter community of micronations, he's mostly active on Facebook, so you can find it. It's the Empire of Stomaria. They've paid for a very extensive publicity campaign, so you'll see a lot of their ads. They're posting in microgroup on Facebook, stuff like that. You'll probably find pictures of myself and him on my Twitter, on New Westphalia's Twitter, on our Facebook, if you're interested.
Okay. Um, let's yeah. That was the recent meet up for you, and before that was obviously the meet up with myself and yourself in Manchester. Um,
It does seem like decades ago.
yeah, it's quite a long. Even though it's been a few months, it does seem like quite a while ago. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah. So let's talk about the recent going ons in New Westphalia. Tell us what's been happening in New Westphalia recently.
Well, uh, it's been quite difficult because the the vast majority of our activity was embedded uh, in multinational politics. Really, it was online. The presence we didn't really do much internally because, as I've said before, for those of you who follow my my rantings, that New Westphalia doesn't have an active citizenry, and it's very difficult because we keep getting heads of state of other micronations wanting to be part of New Westphalia, which to me just doesn't really work because it's never going to be your project. It's always going to be this side thing which you don't really care about. so that was my main concern with that. Uh, it's very difficult because we have well over 2 dozen citizens. However, these citizens are completely silent. Now, I'm happy to add people's names to lists and things, but it does get rather tedious. What's the point of having 100 signed up citizens when you don't even have one position in the government filled, and it's just kind of you sending out mailing letters to people that aren't really getting back to you, and they probably just have it in their spam folder. It's quite depressing in that respect.
Yeah. It can be troublesome. When the Virgan Republic existed, there was like never any more than maybe 4 or 5 citizens at one time. Um, uh, and when I did have citizens, they were somewhat active and did have positions in my Senate, but I am the Senate. But
Do it.
do it. Uh, yeah, and
Oh, speaking of which, something slightly unrelated, but I actually met Ian McDermott a couple of weeks ago.
Ian McDermott. Is that a Game of Thrones actor?
No, that is the Emperor.
The Emperor?
The Emperor. I shook his hand. I shook the Senate's hand.
Oh, right. Oh, right. Okay. Ah,
Yeah.
right.
So
Okay. I get
one of
it. I
the
get it.
last one of the last Comic Cons to be open in the country.
Yeah. Um. No, I'm not dying. I just my rum went down the wrong way. Um. Uh.
I've had a bit of a cough. People have been looking at me strangely.
Yeah. It's happened a couple of times when I've been outside lately. Even though it's on lockdown, I still go out to the shop and everything. Uh. But yeah. And there's to follow up what you said. Yeah, it can be difficult when you don't have citizens to act on things and that's that the next thing. You know, it's
Mm.
not something that you can force people into though. People,
No.
people. If people want to do it, people will do it. And if people just have citizenship and etc., then that's totally up to them.
Mm. That's why I'm very rigid on the idea of having other heads of state and heads of government come into New Westphalia, because when it comes to crunch time, it won't be New Westphalia that they flock to. It will be their own projects. If their own projects get to a certain height, or they change radically, or there's a problem or something, I can expect them to walk out of my job that I give them,
Hmm.
which has actually happened in the past. And it's quite annoying because I tend to feel most of the time, and forgive me if I sound arrogant, but I tend to find that I I I know what I'm doing, but other people go off to things that where they don't know what they're doing, and that can be quite chaotic because I welcome people in, and I think, okay, now we're going to actually get something done. We're going to do it properly, ordered, and we've got like a proper plan and a meeting set up to discuss all these things. But rather than do that, they want to go to their micronations that are literally changing every 5 days, and they're having these espionage battles and these weird fights on Twitter. And I think, why do people prefer that? Why can't we just do something professional, awesome, and and great looking? And it's depressing because I want to have that kind of presentation, but people don't really seem to want to do that with me.
Yeah, like I was gonna say that. Like, what do you think of that whole thing that's happened with the SSC?
Honestly, I'm just seeing the repeats and the repeats and the repeats and the repeats, because this thing seems to be an utterly almost like a rotating dial type thing. We just keep coming to the same thing again and again and again and again. And unfortunately, looking at the leadership of this new use of, is it any damn wonder? The the track record of the people involved surely speaks for itself, and I'm not shy in admitting this, but unfortunately that's the case. I'm not surprised because I'm looking at the people involved, and it's just them repeating actions that they keep doing, but then keep making statements about, where they've like renounced that behavior and then they've gone straight back to it. And I'm just sitting in my armchair, sipping a cup of tea, just watching all this unfold, and I think this is why I don't get involved anymore.
Yeah. Um, I was pertaining to the recent followings of the espionage, as you
Yeah,
did
yeah,
mention.
that is what I was pertaining to.
Okay.
Um, I
Sorry, I'm a little bit. Uh, yeah. Tell us about current projects in New Westphalia. Are there any current projects?
well, we do have some, I suppose, physical projects, but that's really just additions and things to my home, which is the New Westphalian embassy to the United Kingdom. Um, so we've just recently completed some kind of carpentry work, I suppose, DIY,
Mm.
um, and I'm getting some furniture for the outside. Many of you will know what that looks like. So we're getting some outside furniture for that area, which will make it look very nice. I'll be sure to be putting pictures up. But in terms of projects which aren't just construction, I suppose. I don't know if many of you know, but I'm a budding filmmaker, I suppose. Um, and one thing that I am doing at the minute is I'm forming some kind of film crew with a few of my friends. We're hopefully going to be cranking out some really awesome concepts and short films and series. So that's in the works at the moment.
Mhm. Um, and when it comes to future projects in New Westphalia, is there anything planned for maybe the near or the distant future?
I'm not quite sure. It's difficult to put a gauge on it because of how the future might pan out. After the furniture and stuff gets here, it might kind of spur me on uh, to get more motivated with New Westphalia because now it's more presentable. I always had this plan to contact people in terms of like newspapers, like the local ones, and maybe discuss it because it's very quirky. I mean, micronationalism, of course, is very strange and out there, and I know that newspapers and people would be lapping this stuff up.
Yeah. I can just see the headlines now. Man in Huntington runs his own nation. Says I can do a better job than the UK.
Now, you're not wrong.
I try not to be. I try not to be.
That is basically the goal because they do appreciate this weird wacky stuff, and because this is weird and wacky, I can put my own words in it, and and people can take it as what they will, but at least we're kind of getting out there
Yeah.
and getting some kind of footfall.
Definitely. Like I think when it comes to newspapers, they would like as you said, lap it up. Um,
Oh yeah, you've seen how places around in Nevada have everything to do with Molossia around there.
oh yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Um, but moving on, moving on now. You actually run a is it geofiction I should know the word. I'm in the bloody server. I should know the word. Geofiction. Tell
Yes.
tell us about this.
Okay, so geofiction is a form of role play that many of us might have encountered before, because it's essentially the same as nation states. Now, many people that I know, including myself actually, started off in nationstates.net, running a fictional role play nation, as it were, and then progressed on to the ideas: what what other ways are there to create a country on online, and being fascinated with all the little details and finding things that aren't specific enough and things, and then stumbling upon either Molossia or Sealand or one of the others. And so I stumbled upon Kevin Bow, and I didn't really understand what the whole point of it was. But after a couple of months, and I saw MicroWiki at the time. This was about, I think, in 2009 or 2010. I I came into MicroWiki, and the rest, I suppose, is history.
Of course, yeah. Um, some people might argue that this type of role play is simulationism, and some people
Hmm.
might in fact dub you a simulationist because you partake in this. Like,
Hmm.
do you have anything to
Yeah,
say about that?
I completely get where that's coming from. However, that kind of opinion is one which is kind of rooted in uh, ignorance of what people are doing and what they're presenting, because I have never once suggested that geofiction, geofictional roleplay is on par with micronationalism at all, because I'm recognizing this fiction. This is something we are presenting as an art form, or whatever you like. And some people seem to not get that distinction. Um, of course, we've got rampant simulationist kind of things happening in the Twitter community, where people are taking Google images, posting them on their national Twitters, and making up a story of what that is. When confronted on this, now I've done this to people many times, because I don't understand it at all, because it really just is insulting to people who've worked really hard on stuff. Um, and I pulled them up on it, and can't admit it at all. And that's the point where there's kind of a mental block, if you like. So that's what I'd say.
Okay. Um. uh. Hold on. The stream seems to have. Sorry
Yeah,
about
I
that,
just I just noticed it
Yeah.
just said it offline.
Yeah, sorry, ladies and gentlemen. The stream cut out for a couple of seconds there. Unfortunately, my internet connections have become uh, extremely bad within the last week and a half. So do expect
Damn
buffering.
coronavirus.
Yeah, do expect buffering. Do expect sometimes that streams will cut out in future podcasts. All I can do is apologise. um, I had my router changed, and this router isn't particularly good, and I want the router that we had back. But the person that decided to change the router won't change the router back to the one that we had, which was much better. Uh,
It's just not good enough, Grant. Really.
no, no. Sorry. um, if we can get into the what is it you do in geofiction? What is it? How do you go about things? How do you do things?
So, myself and a few others. It was you originally, but I'm not sure you were quite into it after a while. Um, We went onto a Discord channel after having a chat in the old use of, um, and we had this idea of actually creating a geofictional server where we would create a map and a world and a culture and different nations and just role play uh, in text form with each other. So a little bit like nation states, if people know what that is, because that's mostly paragraphs and writing and explaining things through words instead of maps, like Dungeons and Dragons, for instance. Um, so we went ahead with that, and I'm not sure that we understood how it was going to take shape, but now it's huge. There's so much scope which we can get through. We have, I think I mentioned somewhere, we have like, let me get up. Uh, I have a Google Drive with a bunch of the stuff that we've written, um, and I need to find how many nations we've got because a lot of us have created non-playable nations, as in they're not like our proper nations. They're just ones we've created to interact with in the world. And I've done lots of different documents detailing a few of them. Uh, but let me just scroll. We have quite a few. So that the last one that I've put down. So we have about 70 at the minute. So that's a fair few. So we have flags, governments, leaders, anthems, maps for probably about 99% of them. There's just a few that still need to have bits of information made.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's really fun when we actually get into it because sometimes we have really kind of dead silent patches.
Of course, of course. Um, if you don't mind, could you forward me the link to the server? I'm sure that maybe one or two people watching right now would like to join in. Possibly, I'm not sure. Um, but if you
Well, if someone does want to, they could always contact me or contact you because I need to work out how someone is going to enter the server because uh, there's a lot of explaining to do. So it's best if I kind of explain it to you in well, I say person, but I mean in messages and maybe a voice call or something because it is very complicated and there's a lot of concepts that we have to get through and it's quite impossible to do that over text.
of course, of course.
So if you are listening and you are interested in having a gander, perhaps, or me just showing you a bit of the stuff that we do, you can contact me at President NW or at New Westphalia. Uh, you probably know who I am from listening to this anyway, so yeah.
Yeah. Um. So I just want to talk about the most active nations that I have seen. Um. Uh. Obvious. The Dominion of Wyncote, which is run by one Jameson Ruz of uh the something of Hakana. I can't remember what he's renamed as.
Yeah, so his pseudonym is now Sep.
Yeah, oh, right, okay, so there's no Sep. Uh,
Sepsimius of Hakana.
well, that is news to me. Um, I had no idea he preferred to be called Sep now.
I mean, it says on his Discord, but yeah.
Fair enough. Um, yeah, so we've got the Dominion of Wyncote, which is run by Sep of Hakana. The Federal Republic of Odrovakia, which is run by yours truly, Dan Morris, and we also have the Opfelden Republic, which is run by Joe is it Jägermeister of
Yeah.
Leverstein. Good, I didn't butcher the second name. Sometimes I get those wrong. Uh, Those are the most
Yep.
active nations that I've seen as of late, and even early on the server. And while I've been watching over the past couple of months as well, uh, again the most active nations, the nations that have the most things to go through, the nations that have done the most structuring, the most building, etc.
Mm.
If you could just talk a little bit about Winco, Odrovakia, and Opvelden.
So we have a lot of information about them in the server. Let me just see if I can find. Um, so Wincote, I think it's pronounced Wincote. I'm not sure, but well, I just prefer that anyway. So Wincote is a nation which is based off of. I think he was going for a kind of Portuguese influence. He's been doing quite a lot of language stuff, lots of different edits. Uh, there's not a lot to say about it because obviously I have not made the Dominion of Wincote. Um, uh, yeah, this is not helpful.
It's fine. But, I mean, if you're more comfortable, maybe we can start with Odrovakia. Because obviously you know a lot of information about Odrovakia yourself, being the one who writes it all. Um, so let's start with Odrovakia, then we can move on to Wincote and Notfelden.
Yep. So I came up with Odrovakia shortly before we uh, started the geofiction because I was actually thinking of getting back into nation state. So I came up with the name, and I was going for a kind of Slavic esque kind of feel for them, not necessarily Russian or that kind of stuff, but a more kind of Serbo uh, Serbo Croat kind of thing. Um, so the Federal Republic of Odrovakia is a very politically dominant nation in the world, I'd say. Um, the nation that I compare it to in our world would be the United States of America, but a very interestingly Slavic version. So the area around Odrovakia is actually called Odrovakia. It's a bit like how America is in North America. So there's the distinction there. So the president of Odrovakia is Elena Rosaric. Um, Now, she has been in charge of the presidency for quite a while. She had a landslide victory in her last election. Um, uh, the capital is Magyar, which used to be the Khazari of Magyar. Now, we've taken to creating words for things because, of course, there's a very big uh, language thing that we're trying to get on with in terms of everywhere. Like we've decided that English is actually a trading language that came about around an inland sea on one of the continents. So we call it Tractian because the sea is called the Tractian Sea. So we decided that nations coming to the sea, which would meet other traders trying to get across the sea and meeting others. They kind of amalgamated their own languages into this trading language, which then spread across really easily because Elysians wouldn't know how to speak Cartonesian and vice versa and things. So they would all just speak that same language. So it's very common to have Tractian / English around the world. There's lots and lots of different concepts that we've come up with, and Odrovakia has been something that I've been working on for a while.
Oh, okay. Um, if like if I can just butt in there, you said that the president's name was what?
Elena Rosarich.
Elena Rosarich. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Elena is the Spanish translation for Helen.
Okay. I mean, a lot of different languages have similar looking names, but it's nothing to do with Spanish.
Sorry, some of my co-workers have taught me a bit of Spanish, and I do actually have a co-worker called Elena, um, Elena Blanco, which is the Spanish translation to Helen White, uh, which is quite
Okay.
funny. But moving on, maybe if we can move on to Joe Gigameister's nation, Opvelden.
Now, I have never seen so much written about anything before in my life. So, the Opvelden Republic is another kind of American esque nation, but it's on the other side of the world from Odrovakia. It's in this area uh, which was kind of colonized by this empire, which was agreed to be like the first empire. So many of us talking to each other would be able to say, well, the first empire that I know of was like, I don't know, the Roman Empire, or the Macedonian Empire, depending on whoever you talk to. But the first kind of generally agreed uh, large nation was this thing called the Erste Staat. Now, in German, that means literally the first nation. Um, and so historians in the kind of Renaissance period of our world needed something to call this particular empire because there was no real actual name because it was ruled by whoever was in charge of it, and they would call it their nation, like their soldiers, their industry, blah blah blah, and it would be the banners and flags of the family and kings and things that actually ruled it. So there wasn't really a proper demonym for it. That's what I mean. Uh, so in this Renaissance period, historians agreed that the best thing to do would be to give it a name, and so it was the Esterstadt, because this nation was a very Germanic kind of empire. It was as if Germania became the European power instead of Rome. That's the feel that we were going for. And so it spread across the largest continent, and it got to the coast, which Odrovakia and uh, other kind of Slavic nations were on the other side of. And so across the ocean, you've got this nation called Opfelden, which was the furthest reach of the Esterstadt. Um, I think Joe took a lot of influences from the United States, particularly like Civil War period America, um, and he's written paragraphs about every single president that Opfelden has had, and it is insane. Let me see if I can find them. Opfelden.
Just bear with us a moment, ladies and gentlemen.
I need to go into the history of it. Opfelden. Good God. So it will take me a few minutes to scroll up to the top. So the last one that he did was the 43rd president, Manfred Kine. Excuse me. So there's a lot of things which we like to parallel, like historical situations, like for instance the Berlin Wall. We've got a version of Vietnam which is happening. It's a bunch of islands called the Sulu Islands, or just colloquially the Sulus, which Opfelden has a vested interest because they have several bases there, and the place is always chaotic politically. And so they're in the midst of something called the Third Sulu War, which is a very Vietnam influenced situation. Um, yeah, so Opfelden is quite American in a Germanic kind of way. Uh, lots and lots of presidents. He got pictures from different random people throughout history, and just as a middle finger to me, the Brit in the group, he got a picture of one of our prime ministers and made him the president,
Which
which
prime
was
minister
was
was
quite.
that?
It was what's his name? Damn it, he was the MP of Huntingdon, which is where I live.
Oh,
Uh, uh, I'm looking right at his face, and I don't know why I can't see what his name is.
for God's sake. It's
Good
better
God.
than this, Dan.
The one before Tony Blair.
The one before Tony Blair. God, I can't
Yeah,
even remember that.
Tory. Uh, Major. What's thingy Major? I don't know. John Major.
Tom Major.
John Major.
John Major. Okay. Um,
So the thing that we do in this role play is we can do what's called a fan cast. So we take people uh, from popular culture or politics or wherever, and we cast them basically as a character in our world. So, for instance, Elena Ozaric, who's the president of Odrovakia, is Jodie Foster. So I've got lots of pictures of her kind of edited with maybe the flag in the background or her doing a speech or something. Um, we've got other people. Let me scroll up. We've got a whole fan casting area where we've kind of taken taken down lists. Like for instance, we got Gabriel Macht. I can't remember what series he's from, but his name is Hector Tiber, and he's the Prime Minister of the United Provinces of Castiris. We've also got Sean Connery. He's a colonel in Androvakia's military. Got Helen Mirren. She was the first commissioner of the coalition. Now, the coalition is the main kind of reason for this whole server because it's based on this international organization. I nearly said intermicronational. This international organization called the Central Continents Coalition, which is basically like the United Nations of our world, which is really quite interesting. Lots of parallels. That's what we like.
okay. Okay. And uh, just to stop you for a moment, it is approaching live audience question time. So
Uh,
if if any of the live audience members do have a question for myself or Dan, um, please post your responses below, and I'm sure that we could probably get to them. Uh, but yeah, moving on to the Dominion of Wyncote now. Um, talk about talk about obviously Sep's nation.
well, we tried to do that at the beginning.
Well, I know, but you hadn't had the the thought process behind it properly. But now that you've spoken about Odvakia and Otfeld, then hopefully you'll be able to speak about Wyncote a little bit better.
Well, very cheeky. I like your logic, but unfortunately, because I don't know much about it, I could only read things that Che has written, that Sepp has written. I don't know. Let me let me see. Where is it? Wingcoat. So he's got a very nice flag. It's this. I don't know how to describe that. It's a horizontal triangle tricolour with black, green, and white, and it's got this really nice floral kind of symbol in the middle of the bigger part of the green. It's as I said, a Portuguese-esque nation which is made up of a bunch of different large islands. Um, uh, excuse me. I don't know. There's yeah, there's really not a lot that I can say because obviously Jay hasn't been with us for a while.
Yeah, Jay's been kinda on and off from the community. Um,
Yeah, there's lots of portraits in the history bit.
of course.
Um, Lots of ancient stuff. He really likes the kind of prehistory. and the very old stuff. Like for instance, it's got a big statue of a head, and he says the first recorded presence of Homo sapiens on the Ostwaldron landmass, which is the area that they call it, is traced back to a carved idol representing Proto-Meridian tree god Shuwei, that is estimated to have been brought from the more southern Meridian Islands around 3700 EC. Now that's quite interesting. That's something I can talk about because our time scale is a lot different. So at the moment, we're working in the year 5020, because we had this idea during a call, to make it a lot different from having it like 2020. Um, so looking online, most people tend to agree that the start of civilization is when you have like the written word. And so people found the first written words, probably about 3000 BC, something like that. And so we added that onto the kind of natural progression of the human race in terms of culture and technology onto the 2000, because that, of course, is imposed on us by the Christian calendar. So what if we didn't have that at all? Then it would become 5000. So the start of civilization would start 5,000 years ago. So we called that EC, which is the era of civilization. So we thought that was quite clever. We quite like it.
Mhm. Definitely. It's quite interesting. To go back to your point of when the written word was first consummated on planet Earth, and that's where you get obviously the written word. Well, the starting year for uh, the the Central Coalition world. Uh, do you know anything about the Anunnaki?
The what?
The Anunnaki.
What's that?
The right, okay. The Anunnaki were a race of people that lived in the Middle East around 12,000 years ago, and it's been found that tablets containing ancient characters from their language have been found, uh, dating all the way back to like 9,000 BC to 8,000 BC, and then obviously you get the progression from the Anunnaki to the Sumerians, and then to the Babylonians, and now to the Persians, and then to the modern day Iranians and Iraqis.
Okay, that's interesting. So we weren't really too bothered with being historically accurate with our world, because of course it's a completely fictional world. So we could say that the first written word was properly done by a civilization that, you know uh, recorded things, and we found them to be about 5,000 years old. You know, so we're not really too bothered with that. I mean, maybe even our historians in the fictional world are getting it wrong. I mean, it's really quite interesting because we don't have to be correct in the things that we write sometimes, because people can just be wrong in the world. It's quite a soft bed that we lie in.
Okay, that's fine. Um, So now we're moving on to live audience question time. We don't have any questions currently from the live audience, but I do have a question for you, Dan. I have a
Oh
question
no.
for you. Um, you said quite a while ago that you were going to make a video on Mr. Andrew Franson, who has been outed as the puppeteer of the no microbullying, and possibly even the Kingdom of Lilliput, which has fallen silent for quite a while. And I just want to ask the question: where is that video?
So, um, after after that kind of all exploded, I made a video.
You made a
um,
video.
I made one. Unfortunately, I didn't think it was quite right that I did it, because I think at the time a lot of people were giving me some quite nasty grief uh, over how they feel that I've been to them. So I don't think it would have been right for me to add yet more criticism and vengeance and that kind of personality that people think I have, because it's not who I am. I may be a critical person, but I'm not an asshole. And even though I may sometimes sarcastically describe myself as an asshole, I know that I am not malicious. I'm not a malicious person. And when I was speaking about Andrew, it was a place which was more rested in anger than proper skepticism and criticism. It wasn't structured, it was more of a rant. Um, and that's not something that I do. So I decided not to do anything about it
Okay.
and not bother, really. I know a lot of people were really wanting me to do it, and I'm sorry to let people down, but at the time I was not in a good place. Everyone was not in a good place. The community was not in a good place, and adding that kind of fuel to the fire was not a wise thing to do, I think.
Okay.
There's my reply to that.
Okay. Okay. Well, obviously people are a bit disappointed regarding the no show of that video. People really looked for it. People really looked forward to it, and obviously it hasn't come out. But you've given what I see is a fair reason for not posting it now. I think well that is the only question that we had, and obviously it was from myself. Uh, um, I'm trying not to stretch this out and be like but that's what I've done to this entire video. Instead I've just done it again. Another question. That well the we do have a message from the Republic of the Sonland. Well, that's a shame, Dan. I was looking forward to seeing your video, uh, but no.
Well, I'm very sorry for disappointing you, Soneland, the.
Southern Commoner. You do know he lives like
Okay, no. Listen to me. I said Soneland, the.
Sonland,
You know,
comma
like
the.
like
Oh right,
pe-
okay. I thought you said like Southern Commoner. I'm like what?
well, actually, I am from the north, so I can say that. I just don't sound like it.
Someone from Scotland, kiss my teeth. You're just like everyone,
I mean, you're just too north.
it's like so north. It's not even England anymore. Uh,
That's the problem.
um, but yeah. Another thing that I would actually like to bring up, which may be a pain in the ass for some people watching
Oh,
and
no.
listening right now, would be the subject of Ethan Brown. Mr. Brown, when I joined the community in 2018, around the middle of July, Ethan Brown ran the Christian Republic of Senkyo, something like that, some really silly, ridiculous name. Uh,
Yes.
it's like really bad. Um,
That was a bad time because that was when he was confident.
yes, yes. And recently it has been kind of recently, maybe within the last couple of months, it's been outed that he um, did a particular thing while his cousin, a girl called Kay Bushell, um, who who's come in and out the community due to mental health problems, um, has they were in a call together, and it was found that Ethan was doing a particular thing that he shouldn't have been doing while Kay
Mhm.
cried on the phone to him.
Don't worry, don't worry. I'm completely up to date with the perverted actions of one Ethan Brown.
Oh, okay. That was uh, Solomon comma there. I am confused by what that meant. What did you mean by that? So we'll get back to Ethan Brown, but can you
Uh,
explain what that meant?
it was just a passing thing. If you've ever seen Legally Blonde, the main character, Elle Woods, she refers to herself as Woods, comma L. Sorry, that this must be a gay community joke. I don't know. I'm
Legally
swimming.
Blonde. I've heard of that show, but I've never seen it.
I tend to make a lot of references, and they're usually really tongue in cheek.
Okay,
If you've heard me before, you must know what kind of person I am. I mean, that's all it was.
of course, of course. Um, yeah. So that's the answer for that. Um, if
Yeah,
we can,
can you check my calendar? My name's Woods Coming Out.
fair enough.
That's what it is.
Fair enough. If we can get back to the subject of Mr. Brown now, again, and it was within the last week or so that Ethan made an apology letter, and it was published by someone that is viewing right now. Um, and uh, Ethan's cousin Kate Bushell has told me that now she's going to be pressing charges on Ethan due to harassment.
Ooh, now that is something I have not heard.
Yeah. She's going to be pressing charges on Ethan due to harassment because she's asked
Well,
him
well,
multiple
it's
times. So
it's it's difficult, but it's necessary because he just doesn't seem to get anything through his thick skull.
no,
It's difficult because we know that he is not malicious. He's just an idiot.
it's what comes with the Christian life is idiocy. Um,
And
I
it's difficult because he often uses religion as a kind of almost like a justification for things that he says or does.
yeah.
But the problem is, I've had so many conversations with him about those things, is that yet again he's taking things that he's heard and living them, which is what he tends to do. Like for instance, in micronationalism, of course, he uh, he takes some advice and he does it to the nth degree. Like it could even be just, um, Ethan, maybe you shouldn't do this. Just do this, and then he takes that and goes overboard with it. Every single thing he does, it's completely overboard, and he just never really seems to learn. And of course, in the interviews that I've had where I've spoken about him, I've informed you guys that I've had literally hours on calls with him trying to get it through to him how he should be treating other people, how he should be presenting himself, but not ordering him how to. I'm just explaining how I do things and how it's worked for me, and that's where I try to come from. I try to come from the fact that I've got experience which has succeeded for me. It's not about me trying to impose what I do on other people, which some people are very convinced of that I do, but I really don't. It's me showing you that there is success in these methods. Please try these methods because they have worked for me, and I want it to work for you. Like that's where I come from in terms of the things that I say to people.
Fair enough. Um. Oh dear. Apparently Ethan doesn't know that Kay is now going to be pressing charges. Um.
I
Of
hope this comes as a wake up call to him.
of course. Um. Of course.
Mm. Also, something which I could actually give you in terms of well, in inverted commas, a video
Mhm.
uh, for the Andrew Franson thing. I can I can impart the last words that I actually said to him,
Okay.
if you'd like.
Please, by all means. Something's better than nothing.
Right, so I did mention Ethan quite a lot because, of course, he's something which I always have to say, don't be like this. Um, okay, so this was more of kind of my rant, which I then formed into a video, but then I had to get rid of it, and you'll see why, because it's very informal. It's not nice, but I'll read it to you because I want you and the listeners to understand where I was coming from in terms of where I was at the time,
Of course.
emotionally, because this guy has made so much stress for me, so much upset, so much depression over the last year or two, with his actions, with his incessant, I'd say, bullying. Of course, with the no micro bullying, he was a bully. But yeah, this was my reaction. Um, I messaged him after speaking to him extensively, just before he went to, I believe, Disneyland. Um,
Yeah.
and so at that point, I was actually talking quite friendly to him, to the point where he sent me pictures of the Star Wars area, which I was very interested in because I wanted to go. And so that was the last thing he said to me. It was sending me the pictures because he thought like we were buddy buddy. He thought wrong. So then I found out about this stuff, and I didn't know quite what to say. So I just started typing and typing and typing. Right. So this is what I said. So I actually tried to help you the other day and thought you might actually listen to my advice. And now I've seen what you've been up to in these past couple of days, completely ignoring my advice, and now you're in worse shit than you probably even thought possible. Honestly, I can see you're a lost cause, just like Ethan Brown. I tried, but you spat that back at me and decided to make things worse for yourself by the bucket load. There's only so much I can say or do to convince you of how to get ahead in this community. If you choose to ignore that and shoot yourself in the foot and every other body part, then that's on you. But I won't be helping you in the future. And now I find out the shocking truth about you. I don't need to say anything about that revelation in particular, as I'm not even that shocked. But your disgusting campaign in this community has caused more damage than you could possibly have wanted, for some sick and twisted self deprecating reason, I gather. You're so selfish. You're suddenly the most arrogant and disturbed child I've had to come across in this community, and I've been in it since 2009. How dare you turn people against me? How dare you ruin friendships I had because of how you treated the mentality of these people so much that they couldn't handle being around anymore due to your incessant and self righteous bullying? How dare you? Ethan at least had the balls to never use aliases before that one time. He did even come clean immediately himself and explained why. Although being a shit reason, it was still personally valid to him. He was messed up, sure, but not malicious. And I just ended it there, and I just didn't say anything. And now he deleted his account.
Of course. Fair enough. Fair enough. Wow. um, just listen to that. Uh, Obviously, like he has caused a lot of problems for a lot of people.
A lot, and
And
I don't even know how to come back from that because so many people have been affected by how it's made them feel in the community that they haven't even wanted to be in the community, and then it's made people argue with each other because they're pointing fingers, they're having to watch their backs, even though no one's like responding to no microbullying or Lilliput or something. It's still there. You still see it. You still are affected by it. And these people who self righteously come into our community and say, oh, well, why don't you just ignore it? It's really difficult, especially when it's not happening to you. If it happens to you, you would understand why it affects us so much. Even though we're not responding to them, even though I blocked all of the accounts and made sure not to see anything, I was still hearing about it. I was still seeing people's reactions. I was still hearing that they were around saying things, quoting me in their tweets, and in posts and making pictures. There was even Instagram accounts made. One of them was even called Anti-New Westphalia,
Jesus
which was
fucking
ridiculous.
Christ, man.
And so with the strangely ignorant advice of just ignore them, I'm sorry, my darling, that does not wash. So for people who continually want to say that kind of ignorant shit, no, it doesn't work. Honestly, you have to take the bull by the horns and ride it out. And so that's what I tried to do several times. Sometimes it did get very tiring, but the fact that it made me kind of it made me irritable, it made me angry, it made me absolutely fed up. And that's why I took time out of the community. I broke friendships sometimes due to things that I was saying. Uh, Sometimes due to the mentality of the other person and the way that I handled it wasn't great. Uh, Lots of different things. I mean, he destroyed friendships of mine. Like, I have not spoken to people since having issues with them over this for months, and that's never going to change. So I have to live with that
Of course.
because of these children.
That's. I made tweets months and months and months ago, before um, Lilliput was around, uh, about how we should stop acknowledging children in the community, due to their actions and what they do. I feel if people had of listened to me at that time, we would have been in a much better position. Obviously, when you got people around such as Andrew Franson, and you want to help them because they're not experienced, you want you want to give them advice. You want to say these things and do these things for them so that they become like you. And when you find that things like this happen, you're suddenly hit with the reality that this person never had any intention of listening to me. This person never had any intention of cooperating with me. This person never had any intention of liking me and being my friend in the community. And that's the saddest part, because
Mm.
children, even though small, gullible, and totally stupid, can be extremely disruptive and destructive.
I wouldn't say destructive. I'd say disturbed. These children that come into this community and have the gall and the cheek to say that or we are picking on them because of their age, and then their behavior is something that, of course, we can't deal with, is just insulting. And people have issues with how I speak about younger micronationalists. And is it any wonder? Because of how younger micronationalists tend to act. And then I have the ones that don't act in these ways coming to me saying, "Well, I'm not like that." Well, no, you're not like that. Thank the Lord. Like, but the vast majority, you see the way that people act, and this is why I do not like dealing with young teen micronationalists, because they've not understood the community itself at all. They've not understood how to be, how to treat people. They've not had the experiences of life. They've not, most of them haven't experienced loss, pain, grief, bereavement. They haven't gone through life itself. They haven't paid a penny of tax because they haven't worked for a second in their life. Sure, people don't have very good beginnings. I didn't have a very good beginning. I'm not saying that everyone is an idiot when they start off. I'm not saying that people are poor. I'm not saying that people have very low IQs and they can't get up from that. you just have to experience life first before you start imposing your will on people. Like some micronationalists come in and start kind of spouting their ideologies and their new political um, ideas. Like, for instance, Andrew did this thing called Sovietism. I mean, okay, we get that you like the word Soviet, but you just wanted to take a word out and make it your own political ideology. But I'm sorry, no, that's just silly. And this arrogance that we get from children that come in wanting to be these self-declared emperors and kings and presidents and things. Um, it's a very dangerous area because we get that kind of self-righteousness which comes from our own community, because as I say almost every interview that I have, we are a community of self-appointed emperors, and people get the respect that they think they deserve. And if your entire argument is if you don't give me that kind of respect, then you're insulting our entire community and self-determination and stuff. And it gets to the point where you're basically excusing yourself for being a complete utter arsehole. And that does not sit well with me because people can do what they like and say what they like without feeling that they're doing any wrong, because we have a community that props them up. We have older micronationalists that support these children and whatever they do, because they might be parents or they might be teachers or something, and they like to support this stuff. But we don't have enough people that stamp their foot down and say enough is enough. You need to stop acting like this. You need to stop behaving like this. You need to show better and more thought out reasoning and actions. That's what it comes down to. We need people to almost police, I suppose, how people act, because it's just getting to the point where people are just depressed for just being, and that's wrong. People shouldn't be depressed. We should be having a fun time. We should be doing awesome stuff. We should be meeting up. Well, obviously not in this climate. Um, we should be doing awesome presentations. We should be talking about our ideas and our motivations and things we're doing in life. We should be friends with each other. We shouldn't be colleagues just trying to be in the same office. We shouldn't be throwing things at each other. We shouldn't be trying to pretend things that aren't real and all sorts. And I just can't deal with it because it's like a playground, I suppose.
I see your point. Um, when you find it's a playground and you're much too mature for that, it's time to progress back into the building. Um, and that's really all the comments I have on that. This episode's dragged on a little longer than uh, I had expected it to. Um, so I think it's time to finish. We have no questions from the live audience. No questions from myself. Uh, so with all ado, thank the audience for listening tonight. Dan, thank yourself for being here.
Thanks very much for having me again.
Of course, of course. Tune in on Saturday. Where obviously my friend at Moulover 1949 will be back to talk about the Clintons. And maybe even at Virgan Radio, Paul will be on. That 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 guy's a bit. You can never get him on to do anything. But yeah, tune in
Oh,
Saturday.
by the way, Grant, I was wondering maybe I could make on air a request for a conspiracy video.
Battering, be my guest.
I think it would be quite interesting if you investigated the theory that Adolf Hitler escaped to Argentina.
Okay, okay. Um, we'll definitely talk about that with my colleagues on the conspiracy crew.
Because that is quite an interesting conspiracy.
Of course, of course. I know quite a lot about Adolf Hitler's proposed or possible escape to Argentina, but that episode will be coming out next week, as I said on Twitter. Now that the UK is in pretty much practical lockdown, an interview and a conspiracy episode will come every week until the UK is out of lockdown, or until I have my fucking job back. But apart from that, thanks again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Dan. I will see you all on Saturday.